Welcome to another edition of Astropoint, tomorrow's program today. I am your host, Dr. Yaounde, and I have a very interesting program for you. We're going to talk about uniphysical chess, esoteric rules in the game of life. Let me repeat that. Uniphysical chess, esoteric rules in the game of life. And the chess that we're going to talk about is not going to resemble the chess that you're familiar with, but just check me out with an open mind and see if it relates. I believe that I've come upon some really interesting parallels to other areas of life, so-called non-traditional areas that can give you added insight into the game of life as we know it. And remember, on Astropoint, what I'm trying to do is give you tomorrow's program today, give you an opportunity to think outside of the box. So put all of your preconceived notions aside and let's have a little foray into the world of philosophy from an Astropoint standpoint. Now, before we get into that, however, as usual, I go to Astropoint News, and I usually get the items from Nexus Magazine. Astropoint News is next. There. Fukushima nuclear disaster deepens. And by the way, most of this is coming from news that is not, that it's not Project Censored's 25 news stories that did not make it to the mainstream news. So once again, I'm trying to give you another way of looking at things. On the Fukushima nuclear disaster deepens. The 2011 nuclear reactor meltdown in Fukushima, Japan, it continues. And I've talked about this on programs before, and I'm very concerned about how the impact of that explosion is affecting all of us right now. Japan continues, despite both assurances by government authorities and major news media, that the situation has been contained, and the assessment of the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency says that in Japan that they've made significant progress in cleaning up the site. Well, the continued dumping of extremely radioactive cooling water into the Pacific Ocean from the destroyed nuclear plant, with radiation already being detected along the Japanese coastline, has the potential to have an impact on entire portions of the Pacific Ocean and North America's western water shoreline. While acknowledging that the water is remaining in tanks at the Fukushima facility, that it's heavily tainted, the Japanese government's Nuclear Regulation Authority affirmed in a December 2014 statement a decision to dump it into the Pacific. So aside from the potential release of plutonium into the Pacific Ocean, Tokyo Electric Power Company admitted that the facility is releasing a whopping 150 billion becquerels of tritium and 7 billion becquerels of cesium and strontium contaminated water into the ocean every day. By contrast, the Japanese government does not allow over 100 becquerels per kilogram to be sold to its citizenry. So this water contains, and this is a serious issue, this water contains plutonium-239, and its release into the ocean has both local as well as global repercussions. So I think we need to just think about that. I know this is not pleasant news, but it might help you make some decisions. For example, about where you, what fish you eat, how your food is being impacted. So hopefully this is just whistling in the wind and there's nothing to it. But I do think that we should be concerned about that Fukushima situation because it just does not seem to have been abated. Who dies at the hands of the U.S. police and how often? Compared with other capitalist countries, the United States is unquestionably different when it comes to the level of state violence directed against minorities. Richard Becker reported in January 2015 for Liberation, which is apparently a magazine. Using 2011 figures, Becker wrote that on a per capita basis, the rate of killing by U.S. police was about 100 times that of English cops in 2011. Similarly, U.S. police were 40 times as likely to kill as German police officers and 20 times as likely to kill as their Canadian counterparts. This, Becker noted, is probably not the kind of American exceptionalism that President Obama had in mind when he addressed graduating West Point seniors or cadets in May 2004. It's not clear how many people that police in the United States kill each year, since there's no federal agency that accurately keeps track of such information. The FBI compiles annual statistics for justified homicides by police, and all reported police killings are registered as justified killings by the FBI. Participation in reporting homicides to the FBI by the police and sheriff's departments is voluntary. But only about 800 police agencies out of 18,000 provides statistics. Moving right along. Some of you are concerned about increasing sugar consumption. Check this out. Big Sugar borrowing tactics from Big Tobacco. The Union of Concerned Scientists reported in June 2014 that food and beverage manufacturers, along with industry-supported organizations such as trade associations, front groups, and public relations firms, have actively sought to ensure that Americans continue to consume sugar at high levels. And by the way, I'm one who can tell you that sugar at high levels can have an adverse impact on you. The sugar industry has adopted many of the same tactics previously developed and employed by the tobacco industry, including attacking scientific evidence, spreading misinformation through industry websites, research institutes, and trade associations to deceive the public, deploying industry scientists, influencing academia, and undermining policy. One last thing, and I share these with you just so that you can be conscious of the influences that are around you, and so that you can make some of your own decisions about your consumer choices. And one last thing, as I said before, where is it? Fear of government spying is chilling writers' freedom of expression. Mass surveillance has badly shaken writers' faith that the democratic governments will respect their rights to privacy and freedom of expression, according to January 2015 PEN America report, based on the responses of 772 writers from 50 countries. Reporting for Common Dreams, Lauren McCauley covered not only the PEN America report, but also a July 2014 report by the American Civil Liberties Union and Human Rights Watch, indicating that U.S. journalists and lawyers increasingly avoid work on potentially controversial topics due to fear of government spying. So there you have it. Just a few tidbits of news that doesn't make it into your traditional news venues. All right, moving on to uniphysical chess. Some of you may know that I've been doing research in the field of uniphysics, and one of the chief tools in uniphysics is unimath. At this time, I want you to look at the uniphysical triangle, and I'll describe what it is, how we're approaching that. Uniphysics is the synthesis of physics and metaphysics. So when I talk about uniphysics, I'm talking about the process whereby I am blending blending physics and metaphysics to come up with uniphysics. And so uniphysics is the whole notion of providing unification, bringing things together. It's a synthesis. Moving on to the rules of analysis for unimath, which is the tool used in uniphysics. Unimath is, I have found that what happens is that you, in any numerical sequence, numerical sequence that you could find, that they all sum to zero. The increments, it's basically like dimensional math. The spaces between all numerical sequences end up balancing out to perfect positive and negative binaries. So you're looking at the diagram, the rules of analysis right now. And with the rules of analysis, you will see that you have let's see, you have you select a number sequence. The number sequence that we're selecting here is the reciprocal of the number 7. And by the way, the reason I'm using reciprocals has to do with the fact that it gives you a straight number line. So let's look at the reciprocal of the number 7, which is basically 0.0142875, 142,857. So if you go between 1 and 4, that's one. That's an increment of +3. The resulting number is +3. From 4 back down to 2 is -2. From 2 back up to 8 is a +6. From 8 back down to 5, it's a -3. From 5 up to 7 is a +2. And from 7 back down to 1 is -6. So if you look at the increments between all of these, 1, 4, 2, 8, 5, 7, 1, you find that you have a configuration of +3, -6, +6, -3, +2, -6. I misspoke there. +3, -2, +6, -3, +2, -6. So it exactly balances out. You have a result of 0, and the resulting number string comes out to 0, no matter how far you go by assessing the increments. Let's move to another example. The reciprocal of the number 13. The reciprocal of the number 13. The reciprocal, follow along with me now. I'm going to write the numbers of the reciprocal of the number 13. 0.0769230, 0.76923, etc. That is the reciprocal of the number 13, and it repeats forever. And when you assess the increments based on how I demonstrated previously, you'll see that we have +7, -1, +3, -7, +1, -3, +7, -1, +3. In other words, you have the exact same configuration, but with polar opposites repeating on infinitely, and the sum on it all together comes out to 0. So +7, -1, +3, -7, +1, -3, and it goes on and on and on, and you end up with 0. And the last one that I'm going to share with uniphysics with the number sequences, and by the way, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to demonstrate the fact that all life is situated in such a way that things balance out to 0. It's like a numerical homeostasis where the universe wants to be balanced. We have what's called a 0 point. I believe this is indication of a 0 point. So the reciprocal of number 47, the reciprocal of the number 47 is next. And I'm not seeing it on the screen. The reciprocal of the number 47 is, well, I'll just go on and talk about it. The reciprocal of the number 47 is the reciprocal of the number 47. That's what we need right now on the screen. This is, you have the number itself is 0.02127659557446808510638723404225. That looks like it's random, doesn't it? It looks basically random. However, when I assess the increments, you'll see that we have two groups of numbers. The top group of number exactly mirrors the bottom group of numbers, and these are the increments between those numbers. So that long string of numbers looks random, but it is not. You have +2 at the top, -2 at the bottom, -1 at the top, +1 at the bottom, +1 at the top, -1 at the bottom, +5 at the top group, -5 in the top group, -1 in the top group, +1 in the bottom group, -1 in the top group, +1 in the bottom group, +4 in the top group, -4 in the bottom group, -4 in the top group, +4 in the bottom group, +2 in the top group, -2 at the bottom, -3 at the top, +3 at the bottom, 0, 0, +2 at the top, -2 at the bottom, +2 at the top, -2 at the bottom, -8 at the top, +8 in the bottom, +8 at the top, -8 in the bottom, -3 at the top, +3 in the bottom, -4 in the top, +4 in the bottom, -1 at the top, +1 in the bottom, +6 at the top, -6 in the bottom, and then the final 3, -3 at the top, +3 at the bottom, +5 at the top, -5 at the bottom, -6 at the top, +6 in the bottom, +7 at the top, and -7 at the bottom. So if you look at that, you'll see that that seemingly random string of numbers comes out with increments that are exactly mirror images of each other, and they sum to 0. All right. Moving on right now, back to the notion of the uniphysical chessboard. Basically, what I'm saying is that the chessboard is a representation of the duality that is life. So as I was showing you, in uniphysics, everything is a positive and negative balance. You have positives and negatives everywhere. All opposites are including. So the chessboard itself is divided into 64 squares, 1/2 of them black, 1/2 of them white. It's also divided into 4 quadrants of 16 squares each. And actually there are 65 squares if you want to count the chessboard as a whole, but we're not going to go there right now. This game has been around for centuries, and if you look at the way things operate on the chessboard, it could be seen as a metaphor for life. For example, it's interesting that the chessboard has 64 alternating black and white squares. This recalls the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching, which also has positive and negative aspects to it. And there are also 64 bases in DNA. So all of these things, we could say it's just a coincidence, but this makes the game of chess very interesting because it can be directly related to the game of life. So the chessboard is one way to look at the structure of physical and psychological reactions among people in a society. That's what I'm talking about. And each square represents a positive or negative concept. The sum total of all changes balances to zero. Chess, therefore, can be a zero-sum game. And so one of the main differences between the chess that most people are familiar with, which is a game of perpetual warfare, and what I'll be talking about is that the chessboard is, we're looking for a zero-sum game. It's not warfare per se. It's trying to come to a balance, as opposed to in traditional chess, you want to win. One side, one person, you can win, you can lose, you can have a stalemate. But most people, when they sit down to this game, they want to win the game. In uniphysical chess, the objective is to walk the straight and narrow, the Tao. The objective is to have a zero-sum game so that everybody benefits. So let's look at the chessboard, the picture of the binary configuration of the chessboard right now. You'll see that we have alternating black and white squares and positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, repeated over and over and over again. So that's how the chessboard is arranged. Let's look at the lineup, the chess lineup. The chessboard lineup, that's the next. So on the chessboard lineup, and this is the most miraculous thing that I found, that the lineup exactly recapitulates the first 8 astrological symbols. So that you have rook, knight, bishop, queen, king, bishop, knight, rook. If we substitute the astrological signs for those names, you have Aries for the rook, Taurus for the knight, Gemini for the bishop, Cancer for the queen, you're following me? Leo for king, Virgo for bishop, Libra for knight, and Scorpio for the rook. So the rulerships of these are Aries, Mars, the knight, Venus, bishop, Mercury, queen, Moon, king, Sun, and then we start all over again. Mercury, Virgo, Libra, Venus, and Mars, Scorpio. And Scorpio has 2 rulerships, as we find that Scorpio is ruled by Mars, but we've also said that it's being ruled by Pluto. It was ruled by Mars long before they discovered Pluto, and now that Pluto has been demoted as a planet, then we're going back to Mars, but I still think that Pluto has profound impact because I've seen it. And then we have the pawns. Now this back row, that represents the establishment. And then we have the pawns, which are the people in front of it. And we'll talk about what that means later. So let's go next to the next page. We'll see the full chessboard. So on the full chessboard, you'll see at the top we have the Aries, Taurus, Gemini, blah, 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 blah. It's exactly reversed at the bottom level, in the bottom 2 rows. So the top 2 rows with the lineup is an exact mirror image of the bottom 2 rows. Just like in uniphysics, unimath rather, you have all of the numbers exactly being mirror images of each other and summing to 0. So you have, at the top row, you have a positive Mars, a negative Venus, a positive Mercury, negative Moon, positive Sun, and then you have negative Mercury, positive Venus, and negative Mars at the top. And at the bottom, in exactly the opposite place, you have negative Mars, positive Venus, negative Mercury, positive moon, negative sun, positive Mercury, negative Venus, and positive Mars. So once again, you have this binary configuration that sums to 0 manifested in the game of chess. As I have found, it's also manifested in our numerical system. The chessboard pattern, we can go on next. The chessboard pattern is repeated, but the reverse charges on the opposite side of the chessboard. So now we have an abbreviated chessboard, so you can see up close what I'm talking about. You can see the pawn, you have positive pawn next to negative pawn, positive, negative, positive, negative. And by the way, I thought it's very interesting when you're looking at Masonic lodges, at their floors, or if you look at the Fraternal Order of Police in some cities, you'll see the checkerboard relationship. Well, that checkerboard is indicating the positive and negative balance that is all life, the positive and negative binaries. So let's go back, let's go on. Next, we will talk about the chess pieces and the chess pieces as a model of social interaction. We could take that down now, and we'll look at the chess pieces as a model of social interaction. You can see that there are balances all over the place. So the individual pieces, let's draw parallels to their societal counterparts. So the king is the ruler, the leader, political or otherwise. He represents the human will or the soul. The queen is one of the most powerful pieces. In fact, it is the most powerful piece on the board, and it's the king's mate. She rules domestic situations and emotions. The knights can be seen to represent the soldiers. Actually, it represents romance in one sense, because think about the knight in shining armor and et cetera, et cetera. Bishops serve a clerical function. They represent the clergy in whatever religious field that you're looking at. And they serve, churches, synagogues, mosques, etc. And the rooks are fortresses, the castles, the fortified abodes, and also real estate. And we also have the pawns. The pawns are on the second row. And this can be seen as the masses. And the pawns are pitted against each other depending upon whether or not they are black or white. Now, how does this play out on the human chessboard? Well, if you substitute people for chess pieces, the white has the first move. And so therefore, the white pieces tend to be the aggressors. And because of what's called the sensitive dependence upon initial conditions when we talk about chaos theory, they set the tone of the game. The piece that moves first sets the tone of the game. Now, in all fairness, the piece that moves first gets that opportunity through, usually you take the pieces and shake them up in your hand or whatever, and it's like the die. Whoever gets the white gets a chance to have the first move. Black pieces, therefore, since white has the first move, the black pieces start off in a reactionary mode. They're always reactionary. And both black and white pawns are tools of the establishment, represented by the occupants of the first row. So basically, the way each individual plays the game of life depends upon how he or she strategically interacts with the other pieces on the board. Okay, now let's take a look at how the pieces move around the board to see if there's really a valid correlation between the chess pieces, the game board, and everyday life. Okay, the rook, Mars, forward, backward, right, and left. And in a sense, the rook is also representative of military issues because we're dealing with fortresses and protection. And the rooks are also involved in the martial or protective action of castling the king. And they can move from positive to negative squares. The knight, Venus, love, moves in an L-shaped pattern. 2 spaces forward, backwards, left or right, and then 1 space perpendicular to the move. This is kind of complex move. I think it's probably the most complex on the chessboard. The knight can jump over or overcome any piece when moving if the piece that it's going to is available. So that's interesting if we think about romance that way, that it can circumvent situations. The bishops, on the other hand, can only move in a diagonal manner, and they stay on the same color throughout the game. So if you look at the chessboard, the bishops always stay on the same color throughout the entire game, and they can only move diagonally. The queen, which is also symbolic of our emotions and mothers and domestic situations, can move anywhere on the board, forward, backward, sideways, and diagonally. The female lunar principle, she has almost free reign of the board, and she is, as I mentioned before, the most powerful piece on the board. And when we look at that in relation to, for example, the sun, certainly we know that our individuality, which the sun represents, and also the will, they're very powerful. But what can direct the nature of our actions, what can direct the nature of our behavior, would be the emotions as they are attached to the move that we're making. So the queen, the emotions, they can go wherever. And then finally, the king is the reigning force in the game of chess of life, of chess and of life. It is the ruler of all and represents our individuality, our soul, our S-O-U-L and our S-O-L. If the king is captured or immobilized, we lose the game, and that's when it's checkmated. You can check a king at various points. A king can't move into check, but it does sometimes. And whenever that happens, it has to quickly move out of that precarious position. If it does not move out of that position, then the king is checkmated, and so you can just, give up. You've lost the game, or you have lost your will, so to speak. You have not been able, in whatever particular circumstances you're dealing with, to master that circumstance, and so you need to start the game all over again from a different vantage point. Now, quickly, I just want to talk about missing pieces. So far, we've only talked about Mars, Venus, Mercury, Moon, Sun, Mercury, Venus, Mars. Missing from this list are the so-called outer planets, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And as I mentioned earlier, basically, Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. Neptune is the higher octave of Venus. And Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury. The foundation of the overall board is Saturn, structure, limitation, materiality. It is symbolic of earth, physicality, and the 4 elements. These elements are the 4 quadrants of the 64 square chessboard. So you have 4 quadrants of 16 positive and negative squares each, and these quadrants represent the 4 elements: fire, air, water, and earth. And the diagram of that can be shown. Let's pull up the picture of the 4 quadrants of the chessboard so people can get a good idea of what I'm talking about. So you see the green, red, blue, and yellow quadrants. And together we have 64 squares of 4. And once again, the positive and negative pattern is repeated repeatedly in that configuration as well. Okay, we can move that. The players, the chess players are external to the chessboard and are representative of mind. So we have the, as a person who is playing the chess game of life, it is you, it is I. We are the movers and shakers in the dynamic game of life, which can also be seen to be the game of chess. So it is where we take ourselves psychologically, emotionally, mentally. We use logic usually. As well, I think some of the best chess players and some of the best players in the game of life are also people who use their intuition equally. So the mind, or as you move about your daily life, you're playing the game of life. And where you take yourself is where you think yourself to be. We create our world, we create our circumstances based on the causes and based on the thoughts that we hold dear. One way to get a chance to see what those images are, and I'll talk about a little bit shortly, the whole notion of synchronicity. When you see synchronous occurrences, meaningful coincidences, you'll see that what's happening is that you are able to see what path you're on or where you're flowing on a particular moment in your life as you move around. So, and I started this out talking about the objectives of uniphysical chess being different from the traditional game of chess, which is basically perpetual warfare. Well, with uniphysics, what we're looking for is to find that balance, to figure out a way to, for that middle point, that Tao, that point that's neither positive nor negative, but that lets us flow wherever we are and experience perpetual balance, perpetual peace. So, in the regular game of chess, the ultimate goal is winning, as I've just said. Chess is a game of war, a battle of opposites. The goal is that of balance in uniphysical chess. Every move has as its goal to reach balance, neutrality, a 0 point. In this way, we can convert every situation to a zero-sum game. Every square on the chessboard is an intersection of a horizontal and vertical characteristic, as seen as you call the line, the horizontal and then the vertical. They each convene on every square in the chessboard. That's how you can identify where a piece is by its, I'm trying to remember, it's the standard, it's rank and file. You have the rank and then you have the file. So that the rank and the file, you find that for every square on the board. So this is how you can determine where you are. And what we want to do is to find a way to balance the whole thing. By observing these patterns, you can predict the outcomes of a particular move. Okay, the metaphorical meanings of uniphysical chess. I said before, the game of chess has the outcome of win, lose, or draw. A zero-sum game, and it has as its hallmark compromise, which is not what regular chess is about at all. This game is about compromise. Warfare is therefore neutralized. And in chess, it is possible to reverse your spheres, to change your polarity, to change your condition. And this is best seen, for example, when a pawn reaches the 8th rank, the other side, the pawn can be converted into any piece that you want that's of the same color as your pieces, so that a black pawn reaching the 8th rank, reaching the other side, can become a queen, knight, bishop, rook. It can't be a king, though. You cannot. The pawn can never become the king, but it can you can move, it can be promoted, so to speak. The pawns can be promoted. So let me mention something very quickly about the whole notion of reverse chess. In the game of chess, since the white piece gets the first move, reverse chess, the black piece gets the first move. The key is that the first mover sets the tone of the game. And so I want you to just think on your own for a few minutes when you get the chance of what that would mean if we look at it societally. If the tables were turned, so to speak, and the black move had the opportunity to have the first move, would there be a psychological correlation there, or feeling that would manifest itself in society? Would that make a difference? So, in conclusion, with this part, in the game of chess, as in the game of life, the outcome will be determined by how the game is played, which is dependent upon the quality of mind of the players, which is you and I. It's possible to predict the outcomes based on the interaction of the forces, positives and negatives. And it is ultimately possible to reverse one's sphere, to change one's destiny. By neutralizing each move, one will end up walking the straight and narrow, the Tao. The following table provides guidelines for movement. So if you, I don't think we weren't able to do that. But the first piece, if it's positive and the second piece is positive, the resultant square outcome can be positive. If one is positive and the other is negative, the outcome will be negative. It's just like in mathematics. Negative and positive, you'll end up negative, and then with negative and negative, you can end up with a positive or a negative outcome. And so there it is on the game of life. And just really quickly, I just want to go over the uniphysics glossary. So give you a bigger picture of what uniphysics is, which uniphysical chess is part of uniphysics. It's a part of a worldview. And conversation spirals, and this is the glossary. The conversation spiral is the point in a conversation that spirals away from an original topic. You know how you can be talking about something, and the more you talk, you end up somewhere else, somewhere else, somewhere else. Well, those are the positive and negative elements of your conversation taking you to a different point, and it's a spiral thing. You end up with new memes in the conversation. Fractal diagrams, mathematical graphs detailing repeated self-referential structural patterns in nature. And those can very definitely be correlated to the positive and negative aspects underpinning all nature, as I have demonstrated. David Bohm wrote a book called about the nature of the implicate order. And basically, it's the concept of a deeper level of enfolded reality that describes the universe as a kind of giant flowing hologram. And for those of you who understand math and what have you, you'll know that self-referentiality or fractal diagrams are key components of holographic manifestation. We are motivated by memes. And a meme is a word or concept that circulates, infecting the mind like a virus. The meme embeds itself into the consciousness of people and proceeds to replicate itself over and over, causing behavior modification. So for example, someone says that ice cream is positive, ice cream is good, ice cream is wonderful. So therefore, that's a meme. We are replicating that, and every time we look at the concept or hear the concept related to ice cream, we think of it as positive, because that is the taint or the nature or the positive nature of that particular meme. You also, as in other things, you have negative memes. A metadyne in uniphysics is there are units of mental energy, vibrational energy given to the sound of words and concepts. This is another name for the power of a word. Basically, a word are vibrational concepts in sound. A word is a vibrational pattern in sound. I know for those of you who are Christians, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, everything is underpinned by vibration. What is vibration? Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. Frequency is sums up the entire thing. So every word that we speak has a particular frequency. Memes also have frequency. So in uniphysics, if you can determine the vibrational quality of a particular word, then you can understand how to counterbalance that vibration with its opposite and bring the sum to zero, or realization to the next, take it to the next level. A theme, P-H-E-M-E-S, they're very similar to memes, but they're visual concepts rather than words that circulate, infecting the mind like a virus. Fashion fads manifest as themes. Photography, theme, what you're looking at, photograph. In uniphysics, we have what is called a point of balance. That's a midpoint between two or more concepts that are extremely sensitive to outside influences. It's a point of dynamic tension. It's like a fulcrum. And then you have a point of synthesis, where you can blend or build cooperation between any two or more concepts, resulting with a vector of intent. It allows us to see the common bond in opposites or contraries. It's a unification principle. Propaganda, a genetic, psychic, or any other type of force or influence that tends to propagate specific behavior. So during an election cycle, you see a whole lot of propaganda out there with people representing different sides trying to encourage you to move in one direction or another. One of the best ways to places to see propaganda would be in advertising. The constant advertising that we see all the time for all types of things, food, clothing, whatever. Quantars, star quantity, individual units of mind manifested by all things and concepts that can be named. So if something can be named, it's a quantar, it's a quantity, it's a star quantity. Quantosphere, the sea of mind that surrounds and permeates all things in three-dimensional space-time. Actually, it's four-dimensional because we add the dimension of time to that. Spleening is the process of listening and viewing two simultaneous phenomena in order to observe the whole of movement. For example, watching television with the sound turned off while listening to music or another sound source and observing the rhythmic synchrony in the surrounding environment. Spleening, I noticed this years ago where you're listening to music and you're seeing people on the street, and you'll find that they can't hear that music, but they will appear to move in harmony with that. So try it sometime. It's called spleening, which is a blending of screening and listening. So you can turn your TV down and listen to music, and you'll see that the people on the TV are basically moving in rhythm with the music that you're listening to from another source. And this gives you a very good way to see the whole movement, to see synchronicity in action. Sea of mind, it's the ubiquitous energetic medium in which we exist. Sex is Latin for six, of course. It's a point of synthesis wherein the body, mind, and soul of one person blends with the body, mind, and soul of another one. So, for example, you have the Megan David, the six-pointed star. The body, mind, and soul of one blending with the body, mind, and soul of another. 3 plus 3 is 6. 6 is, in Latin, is sex. So sex and 6 are synonymous. And then you have what's called social gravity. Social gravity are environmental stressors: poverty, homelessness, planned obsolescence, unemployment, oppression, and anything that depresses quantile mind or that depresses your consciousness, anything that has the propaganda of pulling you down. Teleology is the doctrine that everything is to be understood in terms of its ultimate goal or purpose. That is not specifically connected with uniphysics, as a couple of the other terms are, but they are, in uniphysics, you're able to see these things happen. Unimath is the computational system used in uniphysics. In fact, I demonstrated the principles of unimath at the beginning of this. It can be found that all number sequences are balanced by positive and negative binaries summing to 0. This is a demonstration of supersymmetry in the world of numbers. And in the world of physics, they're also postulating that there is a so-called supersymmetry. Well, I have discovered it in the field of numbers. And of course, I've mentioned uniphysics, the science of synthesis, the blending of physics and metaphysics in a comprehensive art science. And words are numerical waveforms, vibrational propaganda, and zero. The concept zero. In doing this work, I have come to understand and have a different appreciation for the whole notion of the number zero. A lot of times we think of zero as being the absence of something, but what I'm finding is that zero, you have a positive zero, which means you're moving towards something, nothing moving towards something, as in when you're assessing the increments in the dimensional math that I call unimath. Negative zero is you move from something to nothing, and then you have neutral zero, all and everything in a state of balance. So basically, zero is a positive, negative, or a neutral concept. It's also at the very same time a fullness and an emptiness. So there you have it. I hope I have shared with you some of the ideas that I hope you understand some of the concepts behind uniphysics and its related uniphysical chess, the esoteric rules in the game of life. And let me say that this life is a game. Some people play it better than others. Some people understand the tool that they have. People say a lot of times that that people can pull themselves up by their bootstraps, and then they turn around and say, but oh, certain groups of people have no bootstraps. That is not exactly correct. Everyone has bootstraps, and it is the consciousness, the mind connected to the heart. So what you fervently desire psychologically and emotionally, and if you're consistent with that, because that's a vibrational pattern that we're putting out there, which is why prayer works, which is why mantras work, which is why chanting works. If you persistently and consistently connect your mind with your heart, going in a particular direction without ceasing, you can manifest all types of things. You can reach a point of mastery. Now, that means that everyone who has consciousness and mind, everyone who is in this ocean of awareness, utilizing this sea of mind, you can pop things into existence based on focusing your emotional and psychological intent to bring that third point, that positive, negative, that central point. And you have to keep doing it, though. And one last thing that's really important. The quality of your outcomes will depend directly upon your integrity, your virtue. So that if you are a non-virtuous person, if you're challenged spiritually, you may not get the same outcomes as someone who is on a higher spiritual level. So, because we're only talking frequencies now, that's all we're talking about. So with that said, I hope you have enjoyed this edition of Astropoint. More importantly, I hope you have followed what I was talking about in terms of uniphysical chess, uniphysics, the part that we play in this dynamic living life, this dynamic spirit in whom we live, move, and have our being. It's vibrational in nature, and the highest of that vibration, I think that's one thing that as human beings we want to do. We want to move on up a little higher. We want to get as high as we can in this dynamic sea of mind, so that the things that manifest will be to our liking, and that we can build soul quality and overcome, or at least master, the game of life. So, with that said, namaste, hotep, peace, until the next time. I am your host, Yaounde.